I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town.
What's going on, guys? So back with another video here. Before I get started, I wanted to thank everybody for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. So I really appreciate all of you, and especially guys who are watching this video. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I'll have a lot of cool stuff coming up. I've got some other videos planned for lighting and stuff like that, but yeah, I would appreciate your subscription. It really helps me out. So today we're gonna do a quick, I'm gonna say quick, but you guys know how I tend to take videos. We're gonna do a video on a QLC kind of 101 and a basic, DJ lighting getting started video. So behind me, I have a rig, and I'll kind of talk about it here for 1 second. But we have a rig here. We're gonna open up QLC Plus with a brand new show file, completely empty, and we're gonna get started. So if you don't already know, QLC Plus is a free software. You can download it at qlcplus.org. It's qlcplus.org. And you can buy the DMX dongles that I'm gonna talk about here in a second for like 60 bucks. So like in order to get started with like computer controlled DMX for your weddings, for your DJ events and stuff like that, you're looking at like 60 bucks if you've already got an extra laptop laying around. So let's take a look at the rig here real quick, and then I'll even show you what I got like recording set up for recording, and then we'll get started in making a show file with QLC Plus. So behind me here, we have 2 totems. And on top of those totems, we have 2 JML 50s. These are RGBW moving head. I think they're like 120 watt total with these. I've got 2 of these. In the middle of the totems, we have just an RGB par, nothing fancy. These are like a 80 to 100 watt RGB pars. Just kind of cover it up here a little bit. Doesn't need to be perfect. Same thing on this side, and that's pretty much it. So like, this is more of like a basic rig that you would have at like a wedding or something like that. 2 moving heads, 2 pars, and like a simple rig. Like a lot of you guys aren't, out there setting up like 15 moving heads for a wedding. You're setting up something like this, something simple, something easy, something that one person can handle. And I would set 2 speakers on 2 tripods on either side, and like my booth in the middle. So I mean, simple setup. So like for recording this whole video, some of you guys are interested, I have here on the right a Lenovo laptop here. This is just recording my audio off my lapel mic. I just do that because the microphones on these cameras aren't the best, and I'm sure you've seen that. Over here is a Microsoft Surface. This is what's running QLC Plus. You can see here 4.11.1. And I'm going to do a screen capture on this guy here. Just got a tripod here. And then down here I have a mess of wires and stuff like that. I have my chargers for my DMX receivers. Oh yeah, I'm using wireless DMX for everything. I'm using the Donner wireless DMX system, which is just here. And I have my mic receiver, audio interface, etc. So for DMX, like I said, I have my Donner DMX, wireless DMX transmitter right here. On QLC Plus, I'm connected with a quick USB hub down here. And I have my keyboard and mouse plugged in here, and then my Intech DMX USB Pro hooked here. Or sorry, Open DMX, this isn't the Pro. Open DMX USB on one side, DMX out on the other. And then of course just receivers on each of the fixtures, all 4. All right, so let's spin around here real quick. And I'm gonna take you guys over to the screen capture. And I'm gonna try to capture the rig and stuff like that as I get started programming. So here we go. All right, so now that we have our rig run down here, we're gonna go ahead and open up QLC Plus here. And as you can see, this is just the default window. This is a brand new, fresh show file. I haven't done anything yet. So the first thing we're gonna wanna do is, we wanna see what we're doing when it comes to like the fixtures and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and set up our input and our outputs. We don't have any inputs today for this example, but we're gonna use an output here, which is our DMX USB dongle. So we'll go down here to the bottom of the QLC window here, going to select our inputs and outputs. And it's actually already been selected, but I'm going to want to look for my DMX USB interface here. So if we're using ArtNet, of course we can select that, and I've got videos on all that, but yeah, so we're just going to be concerned with the USB output here. We're just going to make sure it's selected as the output. Now if I deselect this, what that's going to do is if we'll look at our camera over here, we'll see that, hey, all of a sudden we lost DMX. Because basically it's completely disabled any DMX output out of the USB dongle. So my fixtures are going to go to their default mode, which is sound active, and that's just kind of a fail safe for me, so that if I lose DMX during a show or something like that, my rig is not going to be completely devoid of any light. It'll at least go to sound active and get me by for the rest of the gig if I have to. So I'm going to re-enable DMX here, and you're going to see those parts turn back off, and you'll see the little green LEDs kick on the moving heads. I mean, you probably can't see that from where you're at, but just trust me, they're blinking. So, okay, we have DMX back. So now what we're going to do is, before I start anything special, I'm going to save this. So I'm going to go up here, just do a save as, and I'm going to save this as test workspace. This is just what you're going to name your show file. Just for example, I'm going to do that here. So we have our show file essentially started. So now we're going to go ahead and add our fixtures in. So my fixtures, like I said, I had 2 RGB pars and the 2 JML50s. I've already got them addressed. So when I go to add these, it'll make a little bit of sense. So let's add 2 fixtures here. Now my flat pars, I have already a profile set up for them here. If you don't have profiles for your fixtures, you'll have to make them. There are some videos out there on how to make a fixture profile for QLC Plus. So I have them in 6-channel mode, and then I have 2 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and add, quantity 2. Address is 1 because my first par is starting at address 1. And then we'll just, that looks good, we'll add that. And then we're going to add the 2 JML50s. They are right here. These are not in 16-channel mode, they're in 9. So I'm going to set my first channel as 390 and then the quantity of 2. So that's going to set the first address as 390. And the only reason I do that, like if you didn't have any other fixtures, you could just set this as, the next increment, which would be what, 13. But I already have these addressed, and I use these on other show files, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep with that channel convention. So we'll hit OK on that, and there we go. We have all 4 fixtures in there. Now, since these moving heads are RGB fixtures, they're actually RGBW, but they have the RGB fixtures, we're going to go ahead and group everything together here, and it'll make sense in a minute when we get to the animations. But for right now, I'm just going to highlight all 4 of these, right click, and I'm just going to add these features to a new group I'm going to create. And you can group your fixtures however you want, but we're just going to call this RGB fixtures. We'll set these up with a width of 4 and a height of 1, and that'll make sense again when you see this next page where it lays them out. We'll hit OK. All right, so here's our matrix here. We just have 4 fixtures kind of in a row. If I want, I can set this here to a height of 2, and I can put these pars like below each of these moving heads in the matrix. Slim it up here to 2. That'll work too, whatever you want to do. I mean, if you prefer a physical layout, that's fine. I prefer a left to right layout, only because the matrices look a little cooler when you get there, but it really doesn't matter. So I'll go ahead and put these back here into our matrix, just a 4x1, and then I'm going to hit save, so I at least don't lose my fixture profiles and stuff like that. All right, so the first thing we probably want to do is set up a static scene. So this is kind of like the basics here. We're going to set up a static scene, and this is going to be for, like, say you're doing your bridal party introductions and you want the moving heads facing a certain direction. You want them white, and then you want the pars and the totems to be blue. So let's do that. We'll create, up here in the top left here, we'll see new scene. We'll click that. And here's our new scene. I'm going to name this right away so I know what I'm doing here. We're going to name this, let's see, bridal entrance. And then I'm gonna need to add fixtures to this scene, because of course individual scenes can only affect certain fixtures, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want. So I'm gonna add all 4 of these fixtures to this scene for this example. Highlight them all there. Okay. All right. And so we have our 2 flat pars here, and then our 2 JML50s. Now by default, all of the channels are disabled on each of these fixtures when you create a scene. So you have to enable them. And you can do that by the green check mark here, or you can go through individually and enable each channel. You're gonna see here in a bit, we're gonna do a quick example of why you wouldn't enable a certain channel on a scene. But for right now, this is a static scene, so we're just gonna enable them all. You can enable them all real quick from the general tab here, and we can just hit this green check here, which is gonna enable them all. All right, so this is our bridal party entrance. So I'm gonna set these two flat pars to, I said blue, I believe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my dimmer, run it all the way up, and then I'm gonna take my blue fader, move it up, and as you see, the right par is now turned on. And I'll go to RGB par 2. Now I can either A, do this and get the exact same scene, or I can go over here to the one I've already programmed and say I wanted a little green in there. Say I wanted just to wash it a little bit. I'm just gonna add a little green in there. So now what I can do, in order to get this exactly the same to this par, there's actually the copy and paste feature. So I can copy all the current values of this fixture over and then paste them over here. I hit the wrong button, so I copy and then paste them over here, and boom. My other fixture is exactly the same as the other one. Now, QLC does have the copy current values to all fixtures button, but if you have multiple different types of fixtures in here, so it doesn't differentiate between like the RGB dimmer, it just knows it as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I hit copy and I hit paste over here, you know, the dimmer would now be on the pan channel and the R would be on the tilt channel, and it just wouldn't work. So you can use that if you have like a scene with all of the same fixtures in it. So you had like 12 of these pars, you could just you know, run through and hit paste all, and it would paste that exact setup to all 12 pars. All right, so we'll get set up with these JMLs now. If you can see on the camera, I don't know how well, I'll pan it up here a little bit so you can see. The fixtures I have control of here. You can see that one moving around there a little bit with the pan, and of course the tilt as well. So in order to get these kind of facing where I want, I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little bit of color. So I'll run the dimmer up here all the way, and then I'm just gonna use white, because I mean, that's usually what you would use for a you know, bridal party entrance or something like that. And you could face these towards a door or something like that. So I'm gonna take the white up. I'm not gonna take it up all the way because I don't wanna blind myself. Let's just face this thing like, I don't know, let's face it towards that back wall, right in the middle, just as an example. And I can tilt it up just a little bit, you know. Okay, that's great. And then to get myself a starting point so I can get this white value the same, I'm just gonna copy this and paste it to the other fixture. And now I know that my like tilt value is the same, so all I should have to adjust is my pan value, and boom, there we go. Kind of facing right at the same direction there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save this because I like this. And we have our scene. Let's create another scene, and I'm not gonna program a pan tilt value for this. So let's go ahead and add our fixtures. And then we're gonna enable all the channels right now, and you'll see them reset up there. But I'm gonna go in here to the JMLs, and I'm gonna disable the ability to control the pan and tilt. And this will make sense here in a bit. So let's go ahead and set our pars. Let's set these as like red. Let's do purple, like red and a purple there. So I'm gonna copy this, paste it, I like it. And then JMLs, let's do, we can do kind of a purple as well. It looks kind of close right there. Get a little more intense so you can see it, but well, I don't want to wash the camera out. All right, let's go with that. All right, I'm gonna copy this, paste this to the other fixture. Getting kind of bright, sorry. All right, we're gonna save that. Okay, cool. Let's call this purple static. So I know it is kind of a, no, this isn't a static scene. This is a purple dynamic. All right, so let's deselect that so I can see. Now let's go ahead and let's create a movement effect. So obviously I have moving heads. I'm gonna want them to be moving around whenever I'm DJing. So like I can do one or two things. I can either A, go in here and set up like a chaser with multiple like static pieces and fade between it. Or one of the cool things about having computer controlled DMX is I can create what's called an effect here in QLC Plus. So what I'm gonna do is up here on the top, I'm still in the functions tab here, go go over here to the little moving head you see here where it says new EFX. I'm gonna hit that. So the effects here, I've explained this in my other videos of what it does. It's gonna allow me to set up my moving heads how I want. So let's go ahead and add my moving heads in here. And there's the two JML50s. We're gonna set them for parallel right now in our fixture order. And let's take a look at the movement pattern here. All right, so what you can do, you can hit this little play button here, and this is going to actually let you see on the fixtures themselves this pattern. So quick thing to think about, this is 540 degrees on the x-axis, and it's about, 180 degrees on the y-axis for these. So like, this isn't a true representation of exactly what that fixture is going to be doing because it's going to involve 540 degrees in addition to this 180, so it's going to get a little weird. So what we're going to want to do is if we look at the fixtures now, they're panning the complete pan range and the complete tilt range to make this circle here. So let's go ahead and like have this here. It's got about 50 height, or 50 width and about 50 height. So now if we look at the fixtures, it's a little more representative of looking straight down on top of the fixture on how it's going to draw a pattern. It's going to be a little weird because again, we have 540 degrees total of x-axis here on these fixtures, not just 180, so they don't match. So right now the fixtures are facing straight up and they're kind of doing that circle. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to make this width a little smaller. I'm sorry, I like the height, let's make the width smaller. Yeah, let's go to like 40 on the width, so it's not moving quite as much. And then what I'm gonna do is like right now they're facing straight up. I want them to be facing the crowd the whole time. Like I don't want them to be facing behind themselves or like completely weirdly off to the side and stuff like that. I want them facing the crowd. So let's go ahead and we're gonna offset this. And let's take this offset here for the X offset. All right, let's do the Y first so we can get it towards us. We're gonna go down to like 50, I'm sorry, 250 maybe? 200. There we go. Kind of like 200 right down there. So now if we look at the fixtures, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better. They are, for the most part, you know, they're shooting up pretty high, which is fine. I don't mind that. And then once they get to the second piece of it here, they're gonna be almost probably parallel. But we can see they're facing away from us, so we'll have to spin that around, but that's the next step. So that doesn't look too bad. Not too upset about that, I like that. So I want to bump it a couple more to get it kind of closer to the edge there. And then let's go ahead and take the width and we're going to offset that. So that's going to be our X offset. And I don't know if I need to go this way or the other way. So we're going to run this over here. Like 200-ish here. That took us the wrong way. Let's go to 100-ish. Let's see, that's a little far. 50. I think I went the wrong way. We're off the scale there, so we'll go ahead and bring that down here. 200. All right, now where are we? So you see the panning across here, a little far to the right, but not too bad going to the left. So go ahead and take our height down to 40 as well. And then we're going to offset it a little bit more. We're going to take our width down to 30. And let's go ahead and offset this a little bit more. I want to speed this up. So there's a speed tab up here we can adjust these things with. So right now it's set for 20 seconds. I want to make it like 5 seconds to make the full revolution. Let's see. Not too bad. We're pretty even, I would say, going from the left to the right. So now the pattern that's doing the circular pattern is basically covering just the dance floor area or straight out. Now, of course, I can narrow this out so it doesn't go quite as far. I can offset it a little bit more, you know, things like that to make it, you know, a little more direct towards the people. But for the most part, that's actually looking pretty good, I think, right now. And of course, like I said, the time widget here, you can go in here and you can set exactly how many seconds it takes for that full revolution, stuff like that. So, all right, looks pretty good. So let's go back to our general tab here. And then, as you can see, both the moving heads are doing the same thing, and I don't necessarily want that for a show, so I'm gonna reverse one of them. I'm gonna just pick the second one here, I'm gonna hit the reverse button. And now what it's gonna do, that's not gonna reverse everything, it's only gonna reverse the pan. So as you see now, they are mirror images of each other. They're still following the same tilt pattern, but they are mirroring each other regarding the pan values. So let's zoom out here a little bit, and then let's get some colors running here so we can see this a little better. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go to my virtual console here. Stop it. And let's go ahead and get something started here. So this is our virtual console. This is what you would use for, you know, your actual show itself. So this is where you'll put your buttons and your faders and things like that. So let's create a quick button here. We can put it wherever we want. And then I'm gonna actually take this button, I'm gonna copy it and then paste it so I get 2 of them that are the same. I think I've created 3 scenes so far, so I'm gonna do that. 3 of them here. You can arrange them however you want. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and assign these. So the first one I'm going to set up as my movement. I'm going to just name it movement. I'm going to go here to my selection button here for the function that's going to run. We're going to select effects, and there's my circular effect. I'll hit OK. That's set. The second one here, let's see, what else do we have? We have a couple scenes. We have the bridal entrance scene, and then we have that purple dynamic. So we'll set that, the bridal entrance. And then let's go ahead and set the other one to that purple dynamic scene. Now I'm going to definitely suggest that you guys name these, you know, something that makes sense to you, because you're going to be the ones using it. So like if you name it purple dynamic and you don't know what that means, then you're out of luck. You know, you need to set these to something that makes sense to you, that'll help you out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. And then what we're gonna see here is, let's go ahead and I'm gonna hit the bridal party entrance scene. So this should recall that exact scene that I set before, which was the whites kind of facing the middle there, and then the blue on the totems. I'll deselect that, and you'll see the moving heads don't go back to their default. They stay wherever they were last given a command. So they're still facing the back right now, which is fine. And then I'm gonna hit the purple dynamic button. So now you can see the purple kicked on, but the moving heads are still where they were before because I did not give them any sort of commands for that purple dynamic scene, which is fine. That means that, you know, if I don't want my moving heads to be changing any when I change colors, so I could set a purple, I could set a blue, I could set like 3 scenes here of different colors that aren't going to affect my moving heads regarding pan and tilt, but they are going to affect the colors of everything. So what I can do with this one is I can turn the purple dynamic on and I can hit my movement pattern, and now my moving heads are moving in the pattern that we had defined before, and they are purple. So just a quick, it's a combination of 2 different things. You got the purple going, and then we got the movement going. If I stop the movement, the moving heads are going to stop right where they are. You know, start and stop it here. You can see you can move them kind of around a little bit. And then if I disable the purple dynamic and leave the movement pattern running, the moving heads are still going. So I can start that purple at any point in time, and then they're just going to pick up right where it left off, making a cool kind of feel to everything. So there we go. Now we kind of have a starting point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create one more movement pattern, and then we're going to create a matrix for all of our LEDs. So let's go back to stop here. Go to our functions here. Oh, hit the wrong tab. Functions. And then we're going to create, I'm going to name this one, sorry, the one we did before, circle. And then I'm going to create another one. I'm actually just going to clone this one. I'm going to right click and hit clone, so I don't have to re-put my fixtures in and stuff like that. And then I'm going to change this to asymmetric or whatever. I'm just typing quickly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go down to the bottom and hit the asymmetric tab. Radio button here for the fixture order. Go up to movement. I'm going to change this to like a and then yeah, that looks pretty cool. Actually, yeah, we'll leave it asymmetric. Save that. I'm going to go back to my virtual console. Just going to add that real quick so I don't forget about it. Move these around. Just, you know, whatever feels good for you guys. Asymmetric, and then, okay. So another thing I'm going to recommend, just because I'm here and I'm going to remember this, you guys, we can add a clock right here to your show files. I always recommend adding a clock to your show file. It's always nice to be able to look over real quick and see what time it is while you're running lights and stuff like that if you don't have any other clocks. All right, enough of that. So let's go over here to our functions. And so one of the things that we did when we first got started is we added all these fixtures to a group, to this matrix here that we can see. So we can actually use this matrix to auto-generate RGB values for our fixtures. So we can do that here in the Functions tab. And up at the top here, this RGB section here is for a new RGB matrix. So we're going to click that. And then I'm going to name this thing, I'm going to name it Rainbow for now, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, and then we have to pick a fixture group, which I'm going to choose the RGB fixtures, is what we did before. And so now we can see here, I have 4 dots here on my screen. And these 4 dots are just kind of doing a quick little chase here real quick. And so what's happening here is these 4 dots are representative of the 4 fixtures I have regarding their RGB values. So there's a little button on the right hand side, I don't know if it's covered up or not, it says dimmer control here. We want this RGB matrix to control the dimmers as well, because if you have fixtures that have RGB plus a dimmer, then you're going to want this to be able to go ahead and raise that level all the way so that your fixtures can be operated by this matrix. So now let's choose gradient as one of the options in here. There's a bunch of options in here for like different, kind of cool stuff you can do with the matrices. But we're going to choose gradient for now because, I mean, it just makes sense. I pictured it as a rainbow. So the preset is on rainbow right now. It's also got a sunset, abstract, and ocean. These are just kind of color things you can choose. We'll choose rainbow now, excuse me. Orientation's horizontal, just like we see here. And the value, each of these, there's 3 pixels here that are going to be a single color that are going to overlap with 1 pixel in between. So our size here is dependent on how big you want that, fade to be between the colors and stuff like that. If I choose a size of 1, then you're going to see they're going to be literally red, green, and blue. Take it to 2, then I'm going to have red, green, and blue with like 1, faded, or 1 combined color in between each of them. 3 is a good kind of starting point for a decent kind of gradient going on here. But of course you can just adjust it to whatever makes you happy. It is kind of slow right now, so we're going to go ahead and speed that up. Here in the top section of each of these, there is the speed control. So there's a hold, a fade in, fade out. So we're going to go ahead and just bump this hold down. You see it speeding up there. That's kind of cool. Let's add a little fade in to kind of make it like a, maybe I want to fade out. That's what I want. To kind of make it a little smoother there. There we go. Kind of just smooth it out some. That's kind of cool. All right, so now what we can do is to make this a little more realistic, let's go ahead and display this on our fixtures. So right here in the top, just like the effect, there is the play button here, which is going to allow us to view these fixtures, or view the colors here while they're on the fixture. So I'll hit that. And as you can see here, they are just going wild. So now we can actually kind of fine tune everything. I can add a little bit of fade in here. So now they're fading between colors. And a little more fade out here, There they go. So now like we're kind of fading, we're kind of doing an RGB, what's I'll call it. And I kind of like it. Okay, that's great. That's a good thing to just get all kind of colors going, so whenever we get to dancing and stuff like that, that can be cool. We'll save that. We're going to clone that, and then we're going to make one with something a little bit different. Let's do like, I don't know, even odd. It could be cool. The odd being blue. That's black. Whoops. Okay. Yeah, that might be cool. We'll display that and see what it looks like. Yeah. So there we go. So like the left side's doing blue, the right side's doing red. We're going to take our fades off actually. Wow, that's really fast. We'll slow it down a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of like back and forth. That's kind of cool. All right, let's save that. I like that. We're going to name that red, blue. All right, and then I'm going to create a third one here. I'm going to clone it, and then I'm going to call this selection, and that'll come into play in just a minute. I'll explain that here in a second. All right, so now let's go ahead and add these first two matrices to our virtual console here. just gonna take this one, you just copy. I like keeping all the buttons like the same size, so I like to do copy and paste, but you don't have to, you can just create new ones. Wanna add RGB matrices. Okay. And then we're gonna take rainbow, add that. I'm gonna name it, same thing. Of course, whatever makes sense to you guys. Rainbow, and then let's clone this one. Very well, just copy and paste it. That's fine. And then pick this one, was that even odd or something like that? Red, blue, yeah, there we go. Red, blue, all right, cool. So now we got those two, we'll save that. I'm gonna hit the play button here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the purple dynamic, which is what we expected. Bright entrance, that's what we had when we programmed our values for those moving heads. Hit our movement pattern. Okay, it does look good. The movement pattern's what I thought it was. So that looks good. So take off bridle entrance, take off the movement, or leave the movement pattern on. We'll let this keep going. Then I'm gonna hit that rainbow button. Hey, looky there. So the moving heads are being controlled by this movement pattern here on the left-hand side. And then the colors of the moving heads are being controlled by the matrix. So these are two separate things here. The matrix is not going to control any kind of pan and tilt values. It's only going to control RGB values. So like even like strobe values and stuff like that, the matrix is not going to affect. It's only going to affect the RGB values. So I can control the movement separately. If I go over here, I can go click my asymmetric pattern, and now it's going to do that asymmetric pattern that I had set up. You know, just kind of doing something wild right now. But you know, you can independently select these things, which is what's kind of cool. So now I can actually go down to my red-blue pattern here, and now the moving heads are still doing their same pattern they were before, and we're doing that kind of red-blue back and forth. Pretty cool. I can stop the movement pattern at any point in time, and as you see, the moving heads just stopped. They're continuing to be controlled RGB by the matrix. You can kick on the asymmetric pattern here. They're doing. Of course, RGBs are not being affected by it. Kind of a fast pattern. We can adjust that later. All right, so back to our bright entrance scene there, looking good. We'll turn it back off. Okay, so one kind of more cool thing that we can kind of do here is we can take and we can kind of automate that matrix a little bit more. So you know I just created the scene called selection. So what we're gonna do now is on our virtual console here, I'm gonna add an animation, which this is the button here. It's kind of like the curly yellow thing up here. I'm gonna hit new animation. And this animation is a way to control a matrix on the fly. So let's go ahead and set this up real quick. I'm just gonna edit the parameters here. I'm gonna leave it widget named animation 7, that's fine. The matrix function, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna select that selection one. I'm gonna hit OK. And now, what we can do is we can control a matrix directly off of this widget piece on the home screen here. So I'm gonna hit play here. I'm just going to check to make sure bridle entrance is good, purple dynamics good. So now what I can do is I have this set up for that even odd. I can control a matrix here. I have a dimmer here. I can control how much or how little of it I have. And now I can control this on the fly. So the default was I cloned it off the red blue. So what I can do now is I can go in here and if I want to change the colors, I can just hit this yellow. Now I have yellow and blue. If I want to change this to green, I can do now have yellow and green. I can change this to, this purple, and I can change this one to this orange, I can do all this on the fly now, with just having this fader out. Now, of course, this is a matrix, so it's not going to affect the movement of the moving heads. So now I can go back in here, I can hit the movement button, and now my moving heads are going to move in the pattern that we had defined before. And then I can still keep controlling this matrix. I can dim it down if I want it nice and dim or something, and bring it back up. And then I can also change what it's doing. So I can actually change this one over to a gradient if I want, which you can see now. I can change this over to fill, unfill. So it's gonna do kind of a fill and unfill pattern here. 1, 2, 3, 4, one after the other. There's a fade involved there from the other stuff, but yeah. Those are kind of bad colors to do, but that's fine. Green and purple, there we go. So it's gonna end up, purple when it gets to the last fixture. There's other things in here too. We can do the plasma with the colors, which is kind of cool. Regular plasma, opposite, I don't know what that one is specifically. Yeah, it's just kind of like one fixture at a time, going through those colors. kind of neat. So yeah, you can do a bunch of different things, and you can just keep this thing here, and you can just, you know, pick what you want, you know, as you go throughout the evening. If you want to make changes, you can, and so forth. So say you want to adjust the speed of this one, because this one, you know, is kind of dynamic. So we can actually stop that real quick, and we can add a speed widget, which is another option up here. I believe it's this one. Yeah. And then we can actually take this matrix and adjust the speed of the matrix on the fly. So we'll double click this guy, and we'll set this one to adjust the speed of the selection function. Conjunction junction. You can adjust some other parameters of that as well, but for the most part, we're just going to leave this default. Now when I hit the play, I'll go ahead and start this waves thing. And then I can go over here and I can actually define the speed for this. So that's a little faster than it was, and I can sit here, I can speed this thing up. So now it's just like, you know, going real fast. Or I can slow it way down if I want, you know, all just directly here. If I have like a song going, I want to tap to the beat. That's what this tap thing's for. I can just tap, 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 tap. And now it's going to kind of be synced to the beat there that I had chosen by this. So that's a cool feature, but it's only going to affect this thing. So if I take this back down and I go back over here to my rainbow, that's going to still have the speed that was set for the scene. This one's still going to have the speed that was set for the scene. The only thing this duration and speed widget's affecting is this matrix here. So it's going to kind of be on its own, which is cool. So that being said, I mean, that's kind of a quick and dirty overview for getting set up with a quick show for your weddings. And like I said before, I have this on a Microsoft Surface, so like I can be there, we can do the bride entrance, and then I can just boom, right to purple dynamic if I want. Right now it's set so you can run, you know, 2 at the same time. If you want these to be like you only want one to run at a time, like between these 4, I can create what's called a solo widget, which is the red box up here. And I can put all of these things in what's called a solo widget. And I can just copy that, paste it in here, copy that, paste it in here, copy that, paste it in here. Copy that one, paste it in here. And then just, I don't think I can delete more than one. Yeah, I can. Delete those. And now when I hit play, it's only going to allow one of these to run at a time. So now you see it deselected bridal when I went to purple, and then it'll deselect purple when I go to rainbow, and deselect rainbow when I go to there, and vice versa. So only one can run at a time in here. Neat little trick to keep your stuff good. I would also recommend doing the same with movement patterns, because trying to run 2 movement patterns at once is just going to make those things go wild, because they're going to want to try to be doing both. So I would recommend putting any movement patterns in solo frames as well. You can have as many of these as you want. And I can go over here, create a second solo frame here, and then I would put those 2 things in it. So, but that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of like a getting started. I did kind of go kind of quick, so I apologize. I'm trying not to make like, you know, 2-hour-long videos every time I do one of these things. But yeah, so that's a quick getting started on some QLC Plus. And of course you can get fancier with this. I mean, you can go in here and you can set scenes that affect, you know, like I have these 2 here. If you set your scenes to not affect your moving heads and pan and tilt and stuff like that, then you can set these up so that you can have like different colors. Like you've probably seen this in my previous videos, I had like a whole color palette, and so I can individually select colors for my fixtures, but I'm only selecting the RGB values. I'm not actually changing any of the pan and tilt values, because my pan and tilt values are selected from the movement patterns, which are on another section of the screen. So I'll go ahead and save that, and then that's pretty much it, guys. All right, so that's, like I said, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave me questions and stuff like that in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. I can go more in depth on some of these things, but like I already went kind of in depth into like, you know, every feature and stuff like that QLC Plus has. But this was just kind of a good primer to maybe get you started with some sort of a show, you know. And if you follow everything I did, you should be able to get, you know, what I see here. There's going to be differences with your fixtures, I'm sure. But for right now, I mean, you know, the RGB fixtures are pretty much a lot of the same. The Chauvet ones are very close to these. And you can do the same thing. I mean, when you're in there editing, you just edit your faders where you want it and you save it as a scene, you know. And then when you get to your next gig, if you know positions are a little bit different, then you just load your show file, go in there and then adjust those pan and tilt values to get them where you want, save it again, you're good for the rest of the gig. So usually when I get to a gig, I have to set positions for my moving heads if I'm using moving heads for them. And that's what I mean by that. I just load my show file, I go into the editor for the scene or the movement pattern, you know, whatever I'm using. I go in there and then I adjust that stuff around a little bit to get exactly where I want, save it, good to go. You can, if you want, like, save show files per venue and stuff like that, but it takes me 5 minutes usually to go in and just adjust the pan tilt values. But yeah, so I hope this was helpful. I plan on doing more videos. I got some more on QLC planned, and I've got some other videos planned for all kinds of stuff. I just have to find time. Finding time is the tough part right now. So I apologize about like my venue here. We're kind of in a basement for right now, but that's okay. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks.